What's up, Ham Fam? Welcome back to another episode of Heart as a Mother. I am your hostess with the mostest, Jizzy. And before we get started, in the spirit of reconciliation, we want to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 7 territory, the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Nations, including Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai, the Tsuut'ina Nation, and Stoney Nakoda First Nations. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. So for those of you who are new and just tuning in, we are just two moms on a mission to create a safe space for other moms and dads, or anyone really, to share in the honesty and the realness that comes with parenthood, excuse me, while also being able to laugh at ourselves like I just did. And as usual, I'm joined by my lovely, vivacious co-host, Harley.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Hello to all the beautiful people out there. I'm super excited to be here. I really feel like I haven't sat in the podcast room for a while.
It's been a while.
We just wrapped up our first annual golf tournament, and it was amazing. So first of all, big shout out to Sundry Golf Course. They just gave such amazing service, and also to all our golfers, thank you. First of all, we have some really generous friends, sponsors, donors, all cleared the entire OBV table and bought all their merchandise. So from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much. Just because this charity and organization means a ton to Giselle and I. We do want to give a heads up that Giselle and I will be taking just a little bit of a break, but you'll still see us on our social feeds and stuff, but we are going to take the month of August off, but we'll be around again. You can slide into our DMs, but after the crazy couple months that we've had, we think we owe it to ourselves and also to a little bit of our family of just giving back to them, because they have given so much to us and supported us, and we want to make sure that we give a little bit, of course, we always give them love, but give a little love back to them.
Yes, agreed. And like Har said, we're still going to be around, and we're going to be ready to hit the ground running come September. So let's get down to it. So we took a poll asking you guys what you want to see and what kind of content you want us to cover. And a lot of you answered that you wanted content for younger kids and toddlers and infants. So that's what we're giving you today. So the next guests are two local YYC moms and educators who founded Yellowbox Learning, which is a hub that provides educational resources focused on play-based learning. They offer what they call bundle boxes, which have play-based learning activities for your littles, and also have a blog on their website which cover everything from activities, recipes, and ideas to explore nature with your kids.
Yes, so Janel is a teacher, a professional mom of two, and visual artist who loves biking, exploring, playing, and spending time at her family ranch. And Anita, speech arts and drama instructor and mom of two, who also loves spending time outdoors and also speaks several languages. That is amazing. First of all, I wish I had impressive. These women strongly believe in learning through play, exploring nature, which has ultimately led them to start Yellowbox Learning. Welcome, Janelle and Anita.
Thanks so much, guys.
And they also brought us donuts and wine. So
thank you.
Thank you so much.
You guys just know us so well. We're like family now, period.
Exactly.
That's it.
So we'll just have to come back.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about yourselves and how you came to starting Yellowbox Learning.
You want me to start?
Sure.
Well, I'm Janelle, and I have been a teacher, I guess, for 16 years. And when my son was born, after a year, I actually resigned from the Calgary Board of Education, and I decided to stay home with my child. And then I had another one, and that's it. Stopped at 2. And then, I've been teaching in the schools with art. I've been teaching art and doing just jumping into that, and then met Anita on the way, and basically the rest is history. We met and became good friends, and then I can let you chat now.
Okay. Hey everybody, Anita. I was also part of the CBE. I taught for many years, and of course I had different roles throughout, mostly elementary, and usually grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 area, and then I became a French specialist, which was really cool. That was a really cool role, because I got to develop and actually make a program myself and kind of cater to what I wanted as my teaching philosophy in terms of that. So that was really great to be able to do that. And then along came my second, and I decided to resign. It was a really tough decision to want to leave the school board, partly because that's my passion, right? Like, it was my passion to teach kids and things like that. So, but fast forward, and I think Janelle and I met in her backyard.
Yeah.
For the
Through a
very
friend.
first time through a friend after yoga. And and our two eldest, they were kind of sunbathing.
Yeah.
And we plopped them down on the grass and hope for the best. And then, here we are. So with Yellowbox, I guess what was funny is, like, as you know, like, as COVID came and, like, everybody that had kept their kids at home started it started freaking out, right? And it's just like, how do I, as a parent, make up for everything that they do at school? I don't even know what they do at school.
Yeah.
Like, and so with Janelle and I, of course, like, having our background, we're like, yeah, we can do this. And even still, like, at that point in time, we're moms, right? We both have 2 kids at home, different age ranges, and we looked at each other, and pretty much every day we texted, and we were like, hey, what are you doing today? Oh, today I'm doing this. I'm making this recipe. And then for lunch, we're going to do this. And then after that, I'm going to make them paint. And then, And after a while, we're like, what are we doing? Like, why don't we put this, like, to pen and paper and actually make a one-stop shop for other parents that are, like, scrambling and looking everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, we had people texting us every day, like, what are you doing tomorrow? What are you doing all week? Can you just forward me some plans? So, like, I don't know, So we'd be, I'd be, like, late at night, writing up, like, art plans, science plans, not plans, but activities. And, all my friends all have kids around the same age. And, my sister said, I just wish there was one spot that you could just get everything. I'm like, oh, this is what we need, because even myself, I was Googling lunch recipes. I was Googling some really cool, maybe some, science ideas, and I'd be, looking back at my, my notes and education. And so all this takes time. And I just, we thought that together we could really put something unique for parents and caregivers, like for even people, teaching play school and day homes and daycares too. And for parents to make life easier, really.
Well, and for parents that are working at the same time. Like, who wants to make a craft that you have to, like, pre-cut every single piece just to have your kid do it in 5 seconds?
Yeah.
Nobody wants that. So, like, how do we come up with activities and sift through everything so that your kids are actually engaged by themselves if they need to, and that you're just, like, there to guide or just to be in the room and to just encourage them?
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that what you're doing with your boxes, do you think teachers in not just like all boards of, like, should have these boxes in their schools?
Well, so that doesn't follow a specific curriculum like the schools would have to follow, but for preschool and play school, I think those would be amazing because they're topic based, and we have, like, our mini bundles, which are 8 different activities, and then we have our big bundles that have, I think, 12 or 16 or 18.
Yeah.
But because they dive deep into the bundle, you can spread that out for about a month or more.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's a lot. There's a lot of open-ended activities that kids can just really explore and experiment, and there's no like end point. So that's kind of, that was important to us. So,
Yeah. So your mission of focused on play-based learning. So how does that differ from traditional ways of learning, and what are the, like, sort of the pros and cons?
So with play-based learning, I mean, there are so many articles that you can read out there, and there's so many there's such a huge range on what people believe play-based learning is. And then you look at, like, oh, should I follow Montessori, or should I follow Reggio, and should I follow the Waldorf, and or should I just, like, bulk up on like workbooks, right? And we have to remember that there's always a fine balance. Like, whatever your child is more drawn towards, and whatever your child's learning style is, which is the hardest thing, because that's what you need to figure out. Whatever your child's learning style is what you want to go for. So with play-based learning, though, it's the easiest because with toddlers and your infants and preschool age kids, they are so drawn to play. Their imagination runs wild. And like, to be honest, when I look at my 7-year-old even, she is still drawn back towards what her 3-year-old brother is doing all the time. And they end up in the afternoon always doing play-based learning, so to speak. And it doesn't always have to look like the traditional learning, right? Like, I mean, we think of, because we were probably brought up sort of traditionally.
Yeah.
We're used to like, okay, we better do the workbook and then you can do a project. But it's sort of really the other way around, right? Like, let's work on this. And yes, I'm still going to guide you. And yes, we still have to, you actually still need to be directed in some way because you don't know all the information. But then, like, what can you draw from it, from like you discovering like how to play with this kind of topic?
Yeah, and the kids really don't, from the traditional sense, the teacher would stand up or sit down, direct instruct, and kids would go on and do a task. And that's how I think I remember being taught, even, throughout elementary and at high school, and throughout high school. And play-based is really about using your imagination, exploring materials, asking questions, and allowing the child to have a voice in their learning, and providing the opportunities for the child to pick up something or pick a material and ask questions. And then, then as a parent or a caregiver, we can guide them and talk to them and have discussions through like an authentic learning, through natural learning. And, I chose a play-based learning play school because, I just loved how it was set up. It was so beautiful for my child, for my 4-year-old. And they had little center, little areas, little reading corner, their imagination, their, the costumes and their little art. And kids could just easily flow throughout. And then the teachers were there to guide them and to, chat with them and to discuss. And it's just, I think it's amazing.
So you guys talk about play-based learning. You're probably going to be like, what are you talking about, Harleen? Okay, so obviously you guys all have your kids are a little bit younger. Mine is not. So I'm like, wow, I wish I had this when Jaden was younger. But do you think play-based could work for teenagers? And the only reason why is because my son struggles with a lot of things, but his creativity and everything else shines, and then all of the other material and curriculum clicks in. And the only reason why we found out about this was because I was like, what's going on with your grades? And then we took him to Oxford. Shout out to Oxford. Like, honestly, they were amazing helping him. And they said, your son's really smart. And I was like, I don't see it on the report card. I'm just kidding, Jaden. But he said, they're like, he might just, his comprehension isn't the greatest. It's just because he's not understanding. And it's really hard, as you guys know, teachers, because most of the time teachers will either give you A or B. There's so much more than A and B, but how do teachers, and how, even as a young age, just because they're transitioning to be a little bit older, how come the change goes like that? Because some kids, like my son, can't pick up that stuff. If it's so play-based, do you think we will get more engagement from when they get older? And it also, don't you think, like, it would also help them in their real lives of coping with their feelings? Like, I feel like it could be like that. I don't even know what I'm asking, but like, would you guys consider that? I know you guys just started that, but is that something that you guys would consider? Because
or older
children?
Well, I can speak even for myself. Like I think I was taught pretty traditionally, and I am very hands-on, and I need to do things to learn things. As an artist and creator, like, I love creating, and I wish I had the opportunity to do more of that.
Yeah.
And I'm not an auditory learner, and that's pretty much how we learned when we were growing up. The teacher would stand up and talk, and then we go do our worksheets. Like, I don't remember doing these amazing projects. A lot of schools now are doing those things, and they're bringing in, they have the inquiry approach, which is amazing. And the last school I taught was like so just amazing at bringing that into the classroom, and all the teachers were on board, and that's similar in that the students had a lot of time to explore the materials and like take things apart and really have a hands-on approach to their learning and ask questions. And I don't remember getting asked, like, what do you know about bugs? Like, I don't remember that ever.
Yeah.
Like, we just got told, this is what you need to know and learn it. And then, do this worksheet. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
But I think with older kids, I think it would be, who knows? I think obviously hands-on learning is, I think, usually kids learn easier. Even with my son, he's very artistic and creative as well. He likes to learn how things work. So he asked my husband, who's an engineer, he said, well, how does a toaster work? And he could have said,
I love that.
So he could have said, well, this is how it works. Instead, they took it all apart on the kitchen table. And I'm like, is this
You're like,
a good spot?
How am I going to toast?
We have also supper coming up, but that's fine. We'll just sit outside. So yeah, they took it all apart and they had the wrenches and the screwdrivers and they had pieces everywhere. And at the end, he figured it out. Like they went through that process and they had discussion. It was fun. And he loved it and he learned so much. But I mean, you can speak more to that.
No, I was just thinking with our bundles of activities, we catered it so that we talk about open-ended all the time, right? There's no real start and there's no real end. And the same with modification. So I think in terms of going into teenage years, we could very easily modify most of these topics to be appropriate and at the age level of teenagers. And it's not, you were like, I don't even know if this is a relevant question, but yeah, it is. And for myself, I can speak to, I taught in a middle school for a while. And the craziest thing that I could have done as a teacher that everybody was like, whoa, what is this? Grade 9s won't do this, is I still had stations in my classroom. I had stations for literacy. I had stations for math. I had stations for science. And all of these stations catered to different skills. So whether it's research skills or, discovering, asking questions, skills or putting something together, all those stations were self-directed. Of course I gave instructions. Of course I told them what the end goal was. And of course I encouraged them and was kind of mothering them as they were exploring. But at the same time, they were given the freedom to make mistakes, to find error and try to fix it and problem solve and all those things. And what you said about when you go into life, that's exactly it, right? We want to be able to go into life and be able to make mistakes in our workplace and to be able to be resilient and bounce back and be like, whoops, my bad. Okay, let me just try that again. I assure you it's going to work, and yeah, so I think absolutely, I would love to see more play-based learning, so to speak, in higher grades and even in high school. If you think about why do I have to take a class in creative writing?
Exactly. And
why would I have to sit there and take a class on creative writing when I myself am probably pretty creative? And why am I sitting in a desk in rows and being lectured to about the format of creative writing?
Citing books. Oh God, that was the worst.
Agreed.
Yeah. So that was funny that you brought up about knowing stuff about bugs, because the other day my daughter was like, look, Mom, I'm in a chrysalis. And I was like, cool. What is chrysalis?
That's the thing, right? There's a lot of things that Jaden my son, will spew out even till now. And I was like, that's really random. And it's because he's interested in it. I know that I was working with a certain company in BC, and they asked me, I need you to get some curriculum done in boxes like that. And then I had to do one about hydro plants or power plants or hydro plants. I said, first of all, I failed science. I sucked at it so bad, but I was so upset and didn't know how because I was turning my wheels, and I finally found someone who was able to dissect it. And for kids that hate to do something, because that's how my son is, if you could actually get one little thing that they piques their interest, I feel like it just goes down a rabbit hole where they're going to explore their own selves.
Right.
Do you think that because it could be a lot of work for teachers because you said it was stations, you did stations. I love stations. I still do stations with the kids. that I train basketball with. They love it. And the only reason why I believe in stations is because you will individually find kids of what their strengths and weaknesses are. Then you pull them off, and then you figure out, oh, we're not going to put you here.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to self-explore. So do you think it's just too hard for teachers to do it because it's too much work, underpaid, and you're just like, I don't have the capacity and I just don't want to do it? I mean, I'm not trying to throw teachers under the bus. I think teachers are great, but let's have a real honest conversation about how much work it is to teach our children.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the toughest job I've ever had.
Yeah. I don't ever want to be a teacher. I kudos to you guys, okay? Kudos to you.
It's very challenging. And I think I have so many teacher friends, and they're amazing. And the amount of work that I think a lot of people just don't know what goes into a regular day of teachers. And and it's a lot. And also there's just things like besides the planning, there's expectations from above that are put on you that, extra. Mm-hmm. And depending on, what's going on in the world, different things are happening. Also, there's every child is different. So you might have 28, 30 grade 2s, and each child is different. You're trying to get to know them, and you're trying to build a relationship with them, and you're trying to figure out their learning needs. And it is, it's a very challenging job. So, sometimes there isn't enough time, but I think good teachers will differentiate for kids. They will, good teachers will have great programs in their classrooms. And, my friends, they're amazing teachers. And not all teachers are amazing. Just like not in every profession, there's, not like
someone needs to retire early or something.
Yeah, it's just like every profession. There's not, amazing people in every profession. But yeah, what do you think, Anita? How did you like teaching?
Honestly, I think most teachers are so bogged down by bureaucracy and all the things that happen, like staff meetings, like meeting with parents, meeting with the administration, like being able to have paper trail for every single student. Like all of that kind of almost suffocates, right? Like it suffocates around you, and then you're like, oh crap, now I have to plan. And so for example, the stations, planning stations, yeah, it does take so much work at the get-go, because you basically have to plan the possible outcomes for every single skill, and then you have to break it all down and plan something unique for every single skill. But then the beauty of it is that it runs itself eventually, right? And so the onset is so much work, but then I had 2 weeks of being able to just sit back and observe and actually learn, and then from there, after I learned, I'd set up new stations, right? And come up with a different plan. So it is so much work, but the outcome of it, I think, is well worth it.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to in the beginning when you guys were saying that you should try and find out what your child's learning style is. Mm-hmm. And for you, Har, you said that you didn't really know until how old was Jaden when you got that found out?
He was in elementary. He was struggling so hard, and I think that's why he was quiet and he was reserved, but he excelled in anything that was creative.
Yeah. So then how, for example, for me, when I got Ava's progress report back from preschool, they listed all the things that she was really good at, and then maybe some places she was lacking, and maybe we could practice at home. So for her, it was writing the letter K. That was a big thing. So I was okay, so we'll just practice that. So I don't know how, at the time I was just how am I going to teach her? I've never done this before.
Right.
And so what I did was, because she really loves Smarties. She's the only person I know who loves Smarties.
I love Smarties.
Oh, do you?
Ooh,
Perfect.
Any candy,
My kids
actually.
only
Any
like
candy.
Smarties.
Yeah, see?
It's chocolate. Come on, guys.
Yeah, I guess it's chocolate. So what I would do is that we had those workbooks that are erasable, and I would go to the letter K, and every time she finished the workbook, I'd give her a Smartie. But then after that, I'm like, shit, now I'm doing reward-based teaching, and now she's only going to do it if she thinks she's going to get Smarties. So, how do you, what are your tips for parents who want to figure out their child's learning style? What are the things you can look for or activities you can do to kind of try and figure out what that is so that you can help them in a way that's effective?
Right. Well, I think that, we all know our children the best as parents. And as they're growing up, you kind of can see what they gravitate towards during free play. Are they always building? Or are they always drawing? Or are they always, maybe they always have a pencil in their hand and they're drawing on, different surfaces, or maybe they're always singing, or, there's so many different areas of learning and ways that we learn. So kind of watching for those areas that they're interested in. And then I guess in terms of, as a parent, the more you spend time with them doing different activities, I think you'll start to kind of see that, maybe she or he is not really interested in like pencil paper activities, or maybe they're not into building really, like they're just, creating those opportunities and seeing if they're really interested in. I think like having the opportunities though to try all different kinds of opportunities is important. So like as an artist, I would I kind of gravitated towards like art, and I made sure I'm like, oh man, like I'm not a science person, but I had to make sure that I was plugging in, having those opportunities as well for my kids to see if they're interested. And my son is incredibly interested in that, but you can speak more to that if you'd like.
I think I have my perfect example is my daughter. She's 7, and she's just coming out of grade 2, and she's going to go into grade 3. And for us, like, first of all, here's another thing. We decided to put her in early, so she's a whole year kind of ahead, so to speak, for her age. And a lot of parents I know hold their students back or hold their children back. But that was a decision we made, and I still don't know whether it's a good decision or a bad decision. And I don't think there is a right or wrong decision. I think whatever your decision is was best for your child at that age. And so for all the parents out there that are getting flack, first of all, for being like, oh, you shouldn't have put them in that early, blah, blah, blah.
Or you're putting them too late.
Yeah, they're not mature enough. They're like, oh my gosh, they're going to feel like failures. Not really. It's just about the perspective, right? Like a shifting in perspective. But my daughter, for sure, like the other thing about learning styles is like, you have to be able to be in tune with whether they are like hands-on learners, like they have to like touch and feel in order to learn, or whether they're completely auditory, like they can listen to something and like get it right away, or if they have to just observe. So my daughter happens to be an observer. If she cannot see your mouth move, which was the problem this year with COVID, then she's not going to thrive. So we did end up pulling her out of school this year, and I homeschooled her. And that was our choice. And that was the best choice we could have made for her at that time. And she was the one who articulated it. She was the one who basically came up. I waited 2 months for her to come up with this conclusion because I knew that it had to be something that she had to discover in order for us to pull her out. So then from there, I was like, okay, so because you're a visual learner, like, how do we cater everything in terms of that? Like, how do we make everything visual? So, like, even this past month and a half, we've been working with butterflies. Like, I actually took the opportunity to buy a butterfly kit, right? And it
so
got
the chrysalis.
shipped out. Yeah, it got shipped out. Like, I had to, like, prep everything. We had to, like, make a little cage for it. We had to, like, split with the food, like, take out each larva. Like, it is so much work. And a normal parent would be like, yeah, right. Like, screw that. I am not ordering these butterflies. Just look at the book and learn the stages of a butterfly. But for my daughter, I know that that would benefit her so much more. And, like, she does all the things to go with it, right? Like graphing, blah, blah, blah. She wants to draw it. She wants to graph it. She wants to like watch it every day. They want to name it. They want to like own it. And then she gets so invested in it. So yeah, anyways, I forget where I was going with this.
That's okay. That happens to us all the time. I'm like, what am I rambling about?
But yeah, so
she's
like
a visual learner.
Yes, right. Visual, so I think being able to spend time and watching and observing your own child doing the work that they do, you will learn very quickly whether they can learn by ear, by like by through their eyes, like all their senses are so obvious.
Do you know, there's little quizzes out there that you can do for, even for yourselves as an adults, like test your, what kind of learner I am, and also for kids. And we can actually probably put that on our site too.
Yeah, let us know. We'll put that right onto our
on the episode
link.
Because I only found out as an adult what kind of learner I was, So, and I'm definitely not an auditory. I'm definitely visual.
Oh no, not me.
Hands-on.
I'm like, I think my attention span is, and then I'm like, I'm.
So what would you say you are?
I'm very visual.
Yeah.
Like, it was funny because she called me today about a problem she was having. So she's trying to read it.
It was math.
It
Math was the problem.
Yeah. So she's saying it, and then I'm trying to do it in my head. I said, I'm going to be in the office back in 20 minutes. I'm like, just send it to me and I'll do it. And then I calculated it, and then she's like, I still don't get it. And then I literally like did it word by word by word. So I like, and I'm very process driven. And she's like, okay, maybe, or whatever, right? But
I'm not very great at math, guys.
that's okay. It's fine.
It's okay. We have our own strength.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I love numbers, but I can't do it here. It's
You have to
here.
do it on a surface.
On a surface,
yeah.
I got to write it down. I got to do everything.
Yeah.
Like it's, and actually Jaden's teacher mentioned, his math teacher says, so your son is very unconventional the way he solves math. I said, oh, how so? And he's like, well, there's like all these things that we didn't teach him. And
That's awesome. He's so creative.
yeah. And then I said, did he get it right? He's like, yeah, he got it right. I'm like, then what's the fucking problem?
Yeah.
I said, he got it right. Who cares? Like how he got it. And then I started laughing. I was like, well, that was my style. Cause he asked me and I don't know. I like Google the curriculum of how kids are right now. And that was such a challenge. And I mean, for me, it was challenging for him. And I can't even imagine for parents that have like elementary students.
Yeah.
So I just want to ask, what can we expect? What's inside the box and what can we expect? Are there different stages of each of your boxes?
So it's, go ahead.
You
Just
go
really
ahead,
want to talk about this puzzle.
No, go for it.
No, you go. You go.
You go.
Okay.
So so funny.
We're just really excited. So, I mean, we've only been doing this for a year, so we're frantically
not
trying.
even a year.
Yeah.
Not even a year?
Babies.
That's really impressive. Like, because I was looking through when I first heard about you guys, I was looking through your website and stuff, and I was like, how come I've never heard of these guys before? Like, I would have totally taken advantage because, like, like I said, like,
So
it's a
beautiful,
struggle.
isn't it?
But that's awesome. So,
We're new,
Sorry,
yeah.
continue.
No, so we've been, we actually started out of a subscription service, and we actually couldn't keep up with the content, writing it every month. So we changed it to a bundle approach. So I think right now we only actually have one bundle for sale, and we have some freebie bundles, but we have like 5 almost finished. Like we really tried to have it done, for today, but we have 5 kind of just like maybe a few hours left. And so we have, different bundles, like, and they all are topic based, like light and shadow is coming up. We have space and beyond. We have fantasy and daydreams. We have pets, family. So and every topic has, if it's a mini, there's, 8 different activities. And if it's a big one, I think there's 18.
Double that?
Yeah.
Yeah, at least double that.
And within those bundles, there are an activity for each area of learning. So literacy, numeracy, we have life skills, movement, even exercise.
I love that. Life skills.
Yeah,
Like,
life skills is so
that's
important.
huge.
They
Yeah.
need to teach that, like,
Yeah.
ASAP when
Like
kids get into
from
school.
kindergarten to grade 12. Teach our kids to have life skills. Like
Yeah.
you won't fucking use algebra. I'm sorry. We just
Well, yeah,
aren't.
it's true.
You're
Yeah.
not going to be like, hold on.
Pythagorean theorem.
That's the
Your
answer. This is how I
taxes.
split the
I
bill
know.
on our, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let's just,
Survive by yourself when
Yeah.
you're like out in the forest versus hey,
Pythagorean theorem.
you're like, I'm going to die if that's what I had to do.
But at least I know Pythagorean theorem.
Yeah. No, I don't remember that. That was a long
So
time
wait,
ago.
does it go by age or anything, or is it strictly just
No,
topic based?
It's topic based.
Okay.
Right.
So we've kind of given an age range of like 3 years old to about 7. So that covers your like preschool, kind of going into kindergarten. And if you choose like grade 1, like all of the topics are super universal too, right? So like our target wasn't like, hey, we're going to be like super local and only cater to like Alberta or Calgary and like their curriculum. We want this to be pretty much global, which is why all the topics that we come up with are are topics that kids can kind of relate to no matter where you live. You can live in like Timbuktu.
I love that place.
Yeah, I know. And you'd be like, oh yeah, man, I love like dragons. I love fairies. Or like, I love light and shadow. Like, oh, I'm in the Yukon. Like I have like different light and shadow. Like I don't even see the light of day for like
Cool.
months
I
on
love
end.
that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's cool.
and just to clarify, like they're not physical boxes. Like what our whole philosophy behind this is also that we are being eco-conscious.
Show us.
Well, this is sorry.
And reducing our footprint.
Yes.
That's important too. And I'm glad that you guys are actually thinking about this stuff because, which I wouldn't.
I would have literally put the box and be like,
get more
pretty,
boxes.
pretty, you know, and it's like
put
Harley.
more paper in here so it doesn't shake around. You know what I mean? So that's great. You guys are being very conscious about that. So.
Yeah. So it's actually their ideas, their activities, but are broken down. Like, I don't know if they can see this, but this is just example of one activity, and it has a picture, and then this is nature sun catchers, and then we give, do you think you could gather all the things you love in nature and have it frozen in time? Let's try. What do you think that might happen? And so then there's a process and materials, and then the child role and the parent role, and then it's really specific to the activity, but then it gives you a lot of tips and a lot of ways that you can just create that open-endedness to the activity.
Cool.
Is the materials added in there or no? You have to gather it.
No, so you these are all materials that you could probably have at home. Like we're not
perfect.
When we cater these activities, like in terms of the process, we pare it down as much as we can so that it's not like a long process for for you, and then for the materials, we kind of like. We try as hard as we can to go with all the things that you have at home. And if there's anything that you need that isn't from at home, we'll put it in the notes. Like we'll be like, must buy this.
Yeah.
And then so like even like the beginning of this, like all of this is based on inquiry. So like how do you question? Like parents always ask like, how am I supposed to like get my kid to think about like or be creative or like kind of come up with their own ideas without like having to ask like a direct question? This is why we put this up here. And then in terms of like, I think what puts us apart is also like we were very conscious about like making a child role and a parent role, and the parent role is like let go moms, like let go dads, like let them discover.
Oh
and, like,
my God.
make the
That's
mess.
so hard.
Calm
Make the
down.
mess, yeah.
And then for the child role, it's mostly like affirmations, right? Like that you can do this. Here's what you can think about. Like, oh, try gathering this by yourself. So it kind of it just pushes that envelope of like, hey, how do you get your child to be more independent?
Yeah.
And learn these skills. And then for parents, like let go and like let be and let them discover.
That's amazing. Because, like, I don't know. I was going to tell you this today, but we were so busy. But today was the first day that Ava was off for summer break.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're going to survive. This is the first day so my spouse went back to, I know. So my spouse went back to the office. Mark went back to the office.
Oh,
he
my
has
God.
to go back to the office. So I am at home with her all day.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, maybe in the morning you can just use your iPad. But then I was like, okay, this is enough. Okay, put away your iPad. And then every 5 minutes, Mom, can you play with me? Mom, I'm bored. Mom, this, that. Right? And so I'm like, oh my God, can I have one of these right now? Like,
We'll send it
go
to
for it.
you.
We'll send it to you.
so that's amazing. And I love that you have split it up into roles because that answers my first question when I was asking you guys, like, well, how do I know how to teach her this?
Right.
Like, how do I know what to do when I'm asking her, like, do I reward her? Here's a Smartie every time, but that's perfect. Like,
we try to give enough information because, to parents, because it is tricky. Like, we have teacher backgrounds and we still find it difficult to guide our children sometimes, but a lot of these are open-ended, like we said, so there's not really an end goal, and that's much easier than, okay, we have to get to this point and then that's it. And those,
Stick the last eyeball on. No.
like that's the thing with art. Like I, as an artist, drives me crazy with the super contrived crafts. And I'm not saying that they don't belong in like anywhere. I think they're fun and they teach different skills, but just to have that only makes me sad because it doesn't really embrace the creativity that kids.
The sun is different in everyone's eyes.
Yeah.
That's like, it's not like.
that's a good way to put it.
It's right. And I'm actually sitting here thinking about, oh my God, the time that we made the leprechaun trap for Jaden's school.
Yeah.
See all these kids with shoe boxes and like the thing. Here's Jaden and I. Ours was this big.
Awesome.
And I'm carrying it so prideful. Right?
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, like it, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had his own style, right?
Well, Okay, it was more like Harleen had her own style. Even put like we stuck pennies, and I was like, no, don't put. I was like, this is how you stack it. It was more like my vision and not his. And
yeah, and that's so hard for us parents to let go of, right? Yeah. Like especially if we have our ways and we're like, don't mess up my table. No, don't. Why aren't your lines straight? Like, it's impossible sometimes.
Yeah, until he made me feel bad the one time. He was just like, is it okay if I just do my project by myself? And I was like, you don't want to do a project with me?
Like, no thanks, Mom. Slam.
And then I'd be like, do you need help? He's like, no, I think I'm fine. Which, and then somebody was like, okay, you need to like stop it. Like, let him do his thing. So sometimes it's like when... Yeah, it's hard to let go sometimes.
It's very hard. Do you know, it's really a fun activity to try to like put a bunch of random materials out on your kitchen table. It could be cardboard boxes, buttons, some glue, just like a bunch of random stuff with some glue and tape, and see what your child does. Just say, what could you create with these items? It is amazing. It's so amazing.
Ava's getting a bunch of tape and just a bunch of stuff. I want to see what she does.
I know why you're saying this because mess triggers me.
It does.
But does that actually say let go? Because someone needs to tell me to step back a little bit.
We're not we're not brutal like that. Okay?
Yeah. Some people need it. Like
try to observe your child as they discover the materials by themselves.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Try that.
I really feel like maybe you should have like a section of your house that is okay for her to make a mess.
You mean besides my entire house, which she uses anyway?
No, I know. But do you think that you would be like, that is the safe space for her to make a mess without you feeling like you're freaking out on her? I mean, it's just a suggestion.
Already giving me anxiety. I was like, where would I put her?
Yeah, no, I totally.
No, but I get it. I'm
like that with Jaden. He's 15 and I was like, I just fucking vacuumed underneath there. How do you have crumbs, my child? Or like, I'm telling you, like Ava has crumbs. I'm like, okay, she's 4, Jaden's 15. He still has crumbs. You know what drives me crazy?
They will forever have crumbs.
Yeah. You know what drives me crazy, since we're talking about being freaks, is he goes down the stairs and we have handrails. Oh no, he doesn't use the handrails. He does this through my walls. And I'm like, I just washed the damn walls with your dirt. And he's 15. So I mean, okay, I'm sorry, I'm a freak, but I like nice washed walls.
Yeah.
I never knew washing walls was a thing.
Oh yeah.
Until I had a kid, and I'm just like, who was doing this on the wall? You know what I mean? And I'm like, never.
I was like, why is it smut? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, never in your life. This is not just splatter. This is like purposeful. Like,
I did this. Like, here, Mom, clean this.
Yeah, and we were talking about that. I was like, what does it really go through children's head? Like, I'm just gonna take this and do this, or
it's experimenting.
Yeah. So I
like, ooh, texture.
Yeah.
Ooh, more texture.
Yeah. So I have a friend who, she was like, I'm going fucking nuts with my kids right now, and she was like, I've had enough, and I was like, oh, because listening to her vent, and I'm just thinking about her with this activity, because she was like, I don't know how to settle my fucking kids. Like, she's just just had it. So I feel like, how do you engage those kids that are just kind of like all over the place to do something like this?
So I would suggest to everyone, and
listen to this.
Let me write this down.
I know you are watching.
Mark the time.
Listen to this.
And I know some people are totally against schedules. But I think having a schedule or a routine is so important for little people and big people. Like, could you go into a meeting not knowing anything about the topic or what's going on or how long it is? It's like, it causes people anxiety as adults. So kids really do well with routine. So, I mean, in a well-run classroom, if you have like a sweet routine, kids come in and they'll just
totally.
Like know what to do. They'll open up their books. They'll read. They'll do this activity, that activity. You barely even have to teach. No, just kidding. But they literally know exactly what's happening. Yeah. And so we set common routines within our households, and I think you do too.
Yeah.
And we have different schedules actually on the website too that you could kind of follow or make your own.
God.
Under the freebies, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, if you follow a schedule, kids will kind of it takes some practice, and they'll once do it over and over, it becomes habit. So every morning, maybe read a book, to them, or maybe they read by themselves after breakfast. And I love to have pictures of what we're doing throughout the day so they can just see, and then we're doing something exciting. We're doing swimming today or something. But then kids kind of know how their day is going to be. It feels calming to them. And then it's not so much work for you. Like, as a parent, you're like, oh no, what am I doing now? Should I do an activity, or should I do a book, or should we do is it snack time? It's just, it gets kind of a little bit.
You know how they have those calendars? Maybe if you shared a calendar like that with your, I should say this to her, and then just have it like with the time, and then like teach the time, I guess, because you can still teach it, and then they can see the picture visually, and it's like, okay, I got to get ready for bed, or we're going to read a book, or whatever it is, I think would be probably helpful.
Part of that is kids being able to feel like they're taking ownership of something and having control over something, because they have zero, just kidding, they have lots of control over their lives. But
first of all, I really feel like our kids have a ton of control over us. True. I'm just saying, if they think, why are you going to be at the boss of me? No. You guys
are the boss of me.
Are the boss. Yeah. I just don't want to admit it, but it's true.
It's so true. But in terms of like the schedule and routine and stuff, it's so funny because like everybody's been saying to my daughter, hey, it's your last week of school. It's your last day of school. How does it feel to be summer holidays? And my daughter's response is, I'm not on summer holidays. I don't have summer holidays. I have school through like all of it until September, and then I'm in grade 3. And I'm like, yeah. But like, I mean, she knows, right? She knows what works well for her. And like every morning, it's not going to change the summer. We're still doing a little bit of math. We're still doing reading. We're still doing writing. Granted, it's going to look very different. Like I'm talking like card games to like keep it up, and like writing fun stuff to keep it up. It's going to maybe look different, but like that same schedule is there. And then like once she's done everything, it's like 11 in the morning. Like the rest of the day is hers. But I mean, she'll know that there's always like an activity in the afternoon that we're going to do together or whatever. We're going to go biking. But like Janelle said, like we also plan so that there's like some uppers and some downers in our activity, so that there is room to like be like, yeah, we're gonna go for it, and like it's gonna be a crazy mess and creative mess, and then we're gonna build something amazing, and then the next activity would be something more like calming and more self-regulating and more emotional regulation. And so when we're talking about young kids, like all of the parents out there, you've heard about like sensory bins and things like that. And they work because our kids at infancy and in toddler age and preschool age and possibly grade 1 and grade 2, they're still very, very drawn and driven by their senses, right? Yeah. Like they want to sniff their food to make sure that they actually want to eat it. They want to use their hands to eat instead of like the cutlery that we give them, like all of the cutlery. They still want to see every part of the food deconstructed. Like that's a prime example. They're still so driven by sense that sensory bins actually do calm them down. Like any type of sensory, like give them like Play-Doh, give them like something to squeeze, give them something to play, like water. Oh my gosh, like as much as it makes a mess, like just use your sink, like fill the whole sink up, whatever, throw like random objects in there. Yeah, exactly. And then you've got them just kind of like focused on something, and then they zone out. Like the amount of times that my kids zone out in the morning, like that's their routine. They come out and then they have their sensory thing. They zone out for 45 minutes to an hour in the mornings. And then
it takes practice, right?
It does take practice.
It's not,
don't be frustrated. I mean, yes, be frustrated. That's okay. Express your feelings, but know that it takes time. And I always call it, like, I'm always like, oh, I got to train my kids. But it's true. I do have to train them. I've trained them from like day one to just have these like random routines that will help them out as they like grow up. Like, oh yeah.
And daily quiet time. That's always nice for parents, for some self-care.
So, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So number 1, can you come to my house?
Actually,
and then come to mine.
That is so funny. Okay, so that's the other thing is that Janelle and I, like other than these bundles, we have actually just we're just about to like really launch our consulting side of things for Yellowbox. So it'll be Yellowbox Consulting. And in terms of the consulting, right now we've lined up, like we have a few clients, and these clients are like a day home, moms that stay at home. And actually one of our clients, she's got 4 kids. She's got twins, and then she's got 2 older boys. So like 2 girls, 2 boys. And It's been really, really fun for us because we've been able to be in different environments and we've been able to transform spaces. We've been able to help with routine. We've been able to like take what their vision is and actually help them be proactive about changing it because, you know, as parents, I'm like, what am I supposed to do with the space? Like they don't have a space to get messy because I won't let them. But for example, my kids have an entire room that's a toy room. I like shut the door and I don't even care what goes on there. Like a bomb could go off and I'd just be like, sweet, was that fun? And I don't care. And then once a week, I'll be like, okay, time to clean up. And the kids just like clean it up and it's spick and span. Like I'm not kidding you. You can walk into my house and it'll just be like, hey, Natalia, Dominic, clean up the toy room. And then you come into my house and it'll be clean.
Wow, that's really good advice.
Training.
Because the other thing I was going to say too is that in order for the kids to have a schedule, obviously the parents have to have a schedule too. And for me, because she's usually off at school in the morning, and so I can do whatever I want when she's gone.
Right.
So sometimes after I drop her off, I'll like answer some emails and I'll go take the dog for a walk and, you know, just have a coffee or whatever. I'll do whatever I need to do.
Self-care.
Yes, before she gets home. But now that she's home, I'm just like, well, now I got to cater to your ass. You know what I mean? And so like, that's a struggle. Like, do you have that on your website? Like,
We don't currently, but we will.
I mean, not for parents, but I mean like trying to integrate,
okay.
so
So
when you have a
balance.
schedule.
Yeah,
Okay.
balance.
So like I've been home with my kids for 7 years. So I don't just sit and attend to like their every need. That's not possible. So I mean, I have to, you know, I have to eat, I do dishes, we do laundry, we do like life together as a family. And it's not all just like, what am I going to do with you next? What am I like? Are we going to play cards? Are we going to do your activity? Like my kids would love it if I played with them all day, but that's not possible. Right. And I think that's really important that kids understand that like life, this is what life's about. We have to do laundry together. We might have to clean up the backyard. We need to clean up the house, or maybe mom has to do errands or dad has to do errands. And I think like you know, if you're home with your child, involving them in those things is great. There's lots of learning that can happen during those like, you know, boring tasks as well.
Yeah.
So,
But like, say for example, like in our bundles, like there's life skills where it's like, hey, like let's do laundry together. Like how do you sort
Cool.
things?
Okay,
How do you
okay.
so it becomes
game.
part of, yeah, exactly. And it's becomes part of their, I guess you could say, routine or schedule, because it's the same in my household. Like if we're doing laundry, like somebody's sorting, like the little one is sorting, and then like Natalia will fold the previous laundry and she'll be like, ooh, I'll just do the underwear because it's so fun. I'm like, okay, I don't know why you're drawn to underwear, but that's cool. You do you, and I will fold the big stuff. But yeah.
I mean, I like alliteration, so I have like Thursdays is throw it in the laundry. Fridays is flip the bed day. Like I'm a little bit obsessed with those
That's amazing.
special days, but the
That's
kids
okay.
know that, and then we just do it together. And I know it does take much longer, but they can help and they learn through that, and you know, so
Then they'll just keep helping you, and then you don't have
Hopefully.
to call it throw it in the laundry Thursday. They'll just do it.
yeah,
Every
eventually.
Thursday.
Every Thursday.
That's my
It's going to grow
plan.
up. And then when they get married, they'll be like, why the fuck is it throw it Thursday?
My
like,
mom had this
big
thing
up.
called
That's so funny.
I think it's genius. I think I should start doing that. Actually.
But that's
Yeah,
definitely
totally.
like one of our blog posts that we would be working on, like, you know, just to make it more concise for everybody. We have a lot of things lined up in terms of
Yeah.
our blog posts. But yeah.
Didn't we have one that had movement, and all the movements were laundry and chores, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it was like match a sock race, and you know, all these different things, just to make, you know, laundry
So
a bit
genius.
more
I should tell my spouse this.
fun. Yeah.
He hates
Trick him
looking
into
through
doing
his
it.
socks. I'm like, well,
You know what drives me crazy?
game.
I see adults and I see them and I look down and I was like, your socks are different. And they're like, oh, wait, I couldn't. I was like, you're a grown ass person and your socks are different.
But it's like a thing now, like what, like all those companies that are making like three pair, like
they're
three socks.
purposely
No.
making mismatched socks.
No,
now.
no. You can tell this is a mismatched
It's
sock.
like that is wool.
One
and that
long
is-
sock and,
And
then
then
one
ankle
short
sock?
sock, ankle sock.
And then I'm like, you also have holes in your socks. Like, what fucking possessed you to wear a Anyways, that's a different topic of a podcast. We're just gonna talk about socks, mismatch, and holes. So you guys were teachers.
Yep.
the question that I have for you guys is, obviously we talk about how hard teaching is. You have all these kids, you have all the curriculums, you have to do all these things. So my question for you guys is, after you're done teaching and you've had an you're just like, oh my God, my unruly students. How much patience or how much do you have left for your children and your family when you get home?
None. Just kidding. Sometimes none. Like sometimes I'm just like, all right. Like like the last school that I taught at was, I'm going to be super brutally honest. Like it was hell, and it took every ounce of my being not to just like give up and like die in the hallway, pretty much. And it came down to like so much, like it just everything compounded, and it got to a point where I was like making excuses, right? Like I'd be like, oh, okay, like, you know, like I already had my quality time, because my husband and I ended up splitting up like our drive in the morning so that we'd have quality time, so to speak, with one child on the car ride to dropping them off to daycare. And then the opposite would happen after school. And I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go pick up like so-and-so. And like, that's my quality time on our drive home from like me picking up the other child. And it was super, super sad. So like, first of all, I was sad about that. And then when I got home, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, thank goodness for the Instant Pot, because like I just threw everything in there and like left it. And then I could spend some time with them. So it was a lot about like finding efficiency and finding like ways around that. But like, I can't like, right. You'd have to be super uber organized in terms of doing that. But yeah, it's hard as a teacher to come home and have the patience to be with your family and to spend time and have that same energy that you had for like all the little grade ones in your class with your little grade one at home who just wants love. And I think it boiled down to honestly like reading together. The power of words, I think, and the power of storytelling is like so huge. And like I would end up telling stories from school to my kids, and I would read them books, right? Like bedtime was like precious to us because we would just read, and then they would read, or like they would make stories up. And it was like restful for me because I could just lie there and do nothing. But at the same time for them, it was just like, okay, sweet. Like I get to like hold my mom, or like lie on her, or like just feel that like bond and like that skin to skin contact. And that's, I think,
I actually don't know how teachers do it, because I resigned, like I said, after my first, and I've been teaching part-time in the schools, but I teach art now. So, I mean, I go in, I'm an artist in residence, and I leave, and I don't do report cards. I leave like when the bell rings. So that, I don't actually know if I could have done that. And I think like for us and our family, I don't think it would have been a great fit. And I have teacher friends that work full time and their kids are little, and I don't even know how they do it. They're must be so organized. Like
but it is a lot of sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a huge sacrifice on your part, and a huge sacrifice on your kids. Like your kids will make comments. Like my kids made comments all the time.
What kind of comments?
Like they'd be like, "Mommy, you're so tired all the time," and I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm dead." Like,
I ain't even gonna lie.
I know. Or they'd be like, "Oh, how come you're not playing with me anymore?" And I'm like, "Oh, like,
yeah,
you know,
that
like
sucks,
anymore," or like the fact that they could reminisce and be like, "You were this," and now you're like
The
death.
guilt. It's the guilt.
Oh, it's the guilt. Huge. Yeah. So I don't know. Like it's a lot. It's a lot of sacrifice for teachers. So like kudos to like all my friend teachers that are out there.
Do you think that sacrifice is worth it? Based on your opinion?
I think it depends. It depends
personally, for me and my family, I quit because it would have been a really awful time.
Yeah.
So that was my choice, and I mean we had to sacrifice because we lost an income too. So but it was a different kind of sacrifice for me, and I really didn't think I would be a good mom if I was teaching, and I didn't think I'd actually be a very good teacher because I'm kind of like an all or nothing person.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, because we were having a conversation about teachers where some should retire. Yeah, I'm talking to you if you're hating on your kids. But I'm just saying, like, that takes a lot of self-awareness to say, I'm going to step back and just not be a teacher, because it's just, one, if it's not self-fulfilling, and if you can't give 1,000%, just don't do it. And it's okay. And it's totally okay.
Yeah, totally. And I think some people are better at, doing both things. But myself, I knew I wasn't going to be good at both. So I chose one and it worked out for me. So
That's a great part,
man.
like on your part to make that decision. Right?
it was scary. I did cry a lot when I quit.
Yeah.
Because I was a teacher for 16 years and I was
Yeah.
like, what am I going to do?
Of course.
I loved being a mom, but but then I found my way and started teaching other ways and stuff. So it worked out. But.
So I want to go back to like our mom roles. So we read a lot of things online about, things, ways to teach your children. And there's a ton of new things popping up that never really existed, like back in the day. Like, for example, maybe when you had Jaden, such as like sleep training, baby-led weaning, or even play-based learning, right? So in your professional opinion, do you think that these trending methods are shaping the new wave of parenting that might make the traditional ways eventually obsolete? Because we have more resources now?
Right.
I think in ways, yes, and in ways, no. I think, there's something to be said about like things that have worked, right? Like there's always things that have worked. Like if we're talking about like say routines and schedules, yeah, they still work. And you can't say like, you know what, like we're just gonna like be free and like wild, and there's something to be said about some of the things that did work, and then there's all this new thought, right? Like, and through research and a lot of like trial and error and a lot of like amazing people researching and really giving their effort into child development, which wasn't there before. Like we're so used to grouping women and children into a category, and then it'd be like, okay, and then like all the rest of the people, right? Like, and women and children seemed to always come last, right? Like, and so even I feel like even now, like I don't know about you guys, like I feel like there's not enough resources or money put towards child development or children for that matter. For me, I feel that way. Like, it only came like after Dominic was born. This is like 3 years ago. After Dominic was born, I was like, oh my gosh, there's all these new places. Like I could have gone and like helped my pelvic floor. Oh my gosh, I could have gone and like helped him like, find like a nutritionist faster. Like I could have done that with my first child who has like severe allergies. Like where were these people like 7 years ago even, and so now that there's more awareness about like how children develop and how resilient they are, but also how much we should invest in them. Like I feel like all this new research has to be looked at too. Like you have to look at every single angle and you have to do your research. It doesn't matter what you want for your child.
Yeah.
It's not going to work out. Like, yeah, I want to breastfeed my kid, but maybe nothing works. And so
That's a hot topic too.
Oh, yeah.
right. And so you have to be able to like take the curveball and already have had like your backup plan or like researched enough that you could be like, you know what, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay that this didn't work because I know that this is also going to be okay.
I think sometimes there's just new labels for things.
That's
like,
You're right.
Like play-based learning and, free play, which has been pretty much, I feel like that's how my dad just lived his entire life. Like he tells us, he's like, oh yeah, I took my horse and when I was 5 and I took off for the day and then I wouldn't see my parents until midnight. I'm like, what? Like this was his life. This is, free play all day, every day.
Play,
yeah. So I mean, the way I grew up, I grew up on a ranch and we literally played and all the time, but there was no name to it. It was just like that's what we did as kids. So I think sometimes there's just more labels. Maybe.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So you guys have all these amazing books.
Yeah.
In front of, tell us a little bit about these books.
Well, we both love books, and research, everything says that reading books is like one of the most important things you can do, starting at infancy. For communication, language, learning how to read, and we just brought some of our favorite books. So this one, I Like Myself. Can you guys see that over there? It's just such a great book about being yourself, no matter what you look like. And, it just says like, I like me wild, I like me tame, I like me different and the same. I just love it. It's so cute. If you guys are a fan of Mr. Rogers, he has a great book about just poetry And there's just so many cute little poems in there about being yourself, about being creative, about being, kind to others. And I don't know if people, I don't know if you guys like Peter Reynolds, but he's one of my favorite authors and illustrators. And as an artist, I just love his art. And he just has so many great books about, about standing up for yourself and for others and being yourself, and a lot of great new topics.
Right, like building good character.
Yeah. And then, of course, like I love the Iggy Peck books and the Ada Twist, like the, promoting young girls as scientists and
STEM.
engineers.
Nice,
That's awesome.
nice. I love that.
Yeah, and you brought some books as well.
Oh, yeah. So in my house and in my teaching philosophy, like I'm a huge proponent of like the open-ended and being able to like be super imaginative. And so a lot of the books in my house, so in terms of books, like we keep a library upstairs and we keep a library downstairs in our basement, and those books rotate often. And then I'm a huge proponent of like, I know like it's super efficient to have your bookshelf where like all the spines are lined up like the library. But for me, like in our house, like all our spines are, all the covers are facing, right? So we've got like little bookshelves where like which is why for me, like I rotate them quite often. So like I'll rotate based on theme, like of the month or whatever, like Valentine's Day, there'll be like a whole bunch of like Valentine's kind of thing, or like St. Patrick's Day or whatnot. But one of the hugest things for me is open-ended books, like an affirmation. So like this Think Big book. It's just like, how do you look at something a little bit differently, right? So brainstorm on a blank page, right? Or scene set on stage. Like, how do you like think bigger than you actually can see tangible to you. And then I do a lot of like wordless picture books. So like even with like a young book like this, Harold and the Purple Crayon, like it's super simple. And there's not many words. You don't actually even like, if my kid was 1 year old right now or less than that, I might just like show the pictures. And just like, you'll see that it just kind of goes through and it builds a story, like, and builds an adventure. And you don't actually have to read the words. And then once you do, it just adds to it. And then for my daughter, like with writing or like encouraging her to read, like I buy a lot of books that just have pictures in them and don't actually have a storyline that's specific. And for her to like write according to that is way easier, because she's not like, oh, like how do I respond to the story? It's already written. Like, ew. Like that's not the ending that I would have chosen, but I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to change it. Like you keep telling me to change the ending or write a different ending, but that is the ending because the book said so. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we're huge fans of picture books, wordless picture books.
Awesome. Well, I don't know if you guys see me writing, but I'm writing down the titles of these books.
She's got to keep Ava
books.
busy. Well, I told her, I was like, I think it's going to slow down because like with my job is like very event based, and a lot of Albertans usually go out. So we're trying to take it outside instead of inside. So I said, I think I have some time. Like I can take her, like, you know, I don't know. Like, I think I feel like when I take her, I get her from like 0 to 1,000,000. I'm like, you can have her back now. Like, and I was like, I'm really sorry I got her all wild up, because that's how I am when I see her. Like, I just get wild up every time I see her. It's just like nothing. It's just all or nothing. You just get all of me, you know? And because I have a 15-year-old, so it's just, it's such a different thing. So guys, thank you so much for being here. I literally have so much more questions to ask. And I can't wait for the stuff that you guys are going to come out with, and all these, like what you guys are doing is amazing.
Thank you.
But I have a question before we go for both of you guys. So today, I know a lot of moms are going to learn. Like, they're going to be like, oh my God, there's something that's going to keep me sane for my kids. So you both obviously are so passionate about what you guys do in your fields. So before we go, we want to ask each of you, what is your biggest takeaway from studying and teaching the specialized type of learning? And how do you hope it will make an impact in your own children's lives?
In our children's lives?
Yeah.
Whoa, can you like repeat that?
Sure, I can. So what is your biggest takeaway from studying and teaching this specialized type of learning of what you guys are developing? How do you hope it will make an impact in your own children's lives?
Do you want me to go?
Sure.
Oh, both of you can go.
Oh, I mean,
yeah.
first.
Yeah. Okay.
Because my thoughts are here and it might fall out. So I mean, we both taught, or I mean, we both like obviously learned in a similar way. I went to UVA. Where'd you go?
I went to UBC.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't until like later on in my career that I started to realize the different, like, I guess what worked. I mean, when you first start teaching, you really don't know what you're doing. Like, let's be honest. It's scary and, you try your best, but it wasn't until after that I figured out what worked with the kids. And, is that me?
I don't know what that is. I'm like looking around like, what is that? I don't know. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So I just realized through teaching and practicing and experimenting all different kinds of philosophies, because really, I mean, we teach a curriculum as teachers, but we can kind of go with what works for ourselves. Everyone teaches differently because we all have different styles of teaching. And I really loved the inquiry way of teaching and play and, exploration and getting kids to ask questions and be curious. And I just really saw the change in behavior and learning and interest. Like kids were just so interested in the topics when they had some voice and some choice. And so I guess in terms of my own kids, like I really am a fan of like learning through like exploration. And we try to do a lot of things like, oh my gosh, my son asked so many questions to a point where like last night before bed, like as I'm kissing him, he said, Mom, how do I know if I'm alive? Like, oh
my God.
It's a loaded question, buddy.
That is
Like, how do I even
question.
answer that? Yeah.
I didn't. I'm still trying to answer that today and throughout the rest of my life. But so I mean, I just really hope for the way I parent and what I've learned through my education is I really want my kids to be innovative, to be creative, to think for themselves, and kids that can play independently and know how to be, use their imaginations. That's like so important as an adult. If my husband's an engineer, it's a totally different field for me, but he says all the time, like he knows those great engineers are the ones that are creative and can solve problems and be independent and problem solve without asking every step of the way. And that's through like exploration and learning and following your passion as well. And I think for me it works for us. And I hope I mean I'm not perfect. It's like I make tons of mistakes, but I really hope that as they grow up they can take that part from my parenting, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a tough act to follow.
No.
I think for me, like, this has been the way that I've taught all the time. Like, that's when I first started, it was just like, when you first start as a teacher, you have all this theory behind you. And you know it all because you've memorized it all and you've like gone through all these lectures and et cetera, and you've written essays and you've like researched it all. So you know all the technical aspects of it. And then when you're thrown into classroom, you're like, whoa, what just happened? Like, who are all you people? You are not normal. And then you learn.
No such thing as normal.
I know, exactly. And then you learn, and then you kind of like learn the idiosyncrasies of everything about every type of person. Like in our classroom, there's literally every type of person that you'll ever meet in your entire life, from the people that really trigger you to the people that are like a dream to you. But that could be totally different for somebody else. And so I think we have to give a little grace also to teachers who don't always encounter all of these different kids and all of these different like things that our kids are presenting to them. So as a teacher, like for me, like the methods that I've done that I have like extended into Yellowbox Learning, those are all things that have worked in every single one of my classrooms, no matter which one I've been in, and in every situation that I've been in, like whether I've been teaching one-on-one, because I teach speech as well with kids. So I think those kids that I've taught are a testimonial to all the things that work for Janelle and I in terms of Yellowbox. And then my kids too, like the biggest thing that I want them to take away is that like everything that they are going through, like, as guinea pigs to this project, this big giant project. They're working, and it's a testimonial to me too that I'm, like, Janelle and I are doing something right.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
and so I hope that my kids will learn to be independent, just like Janelle's. That they're able to see the bigger picture and carve their own story, right? Like for me, it's big for them to carve their own story and find their own niche and be able to, like, articulate and tell other people exactly how they learn or how they see things, and, like, kind of help people shift their perspectives, no matter in which situation they're in, be it the job or, like, education or, you know, anywhere in life as they travel, like being able to meet different people in life and being able to understand and be compassionate and empathetic to what their viewpoints are too.
Yeah.
I think that's my biggest thing.
It's amazing. Well, thank you again so much, the both of you, for joining us today. It was our absolute pleasure having you on the show, and I know I've learned a lot. Like, I was taking notes.
Me too.
Crazy person. Yeah. So thank you so much, guys. So to everyone listening and watching, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode too and learned as much as we did. That's it for us today. Remember to be kind, but also most importantly, love yourself even on the hardest days.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.